Hi, everyone. Tandy Ellis-Sala here. Welcome to the Empowered Family Caregiver Podcast, where we help family caregivers go from stressed to calm. I am so grateful that you are here today, and I am especially thankful for my guest, Nancy Juetten, co-founder of Life Goes On Roadmap. Together with her husband, certified financial planner, professional Steve Juetten, they guide couples to share power, ease, and control over their financial information, even after life has served up a bump in the road. This is especially important when something happens along the road of life, when one needs to step up as the advocate for the other, or be in the position of being able to drive life forward, no matter what, without losing valuable time or aggravation or time away from work searching for essential documents they need. They offer easy-to-use tools, an upbeat and optimistic approach to getting it done, and accountability to couples and families across the country. So, welcome, Nancy.
Hi, Tandy. It's so great to be here. Thanks for the wonderful intro.
My gosh. So today we're going to be talking about 5 blind spots for couples that stop financial empowerment and how to course correct for a smoother journey. I can tell you that as a family caregiver, this is an especially important episode because we know all too often that when we are thrust into the role of caregiver for a loved one, a lot of times these financial, these household, operational, and legal matters are not documented. They're not addressed. They're not written down. And a lot of times people are afraid, in my experience, people are afraid to put it in writing, and they feel like they will lose their independence. And I like to tell my clients that making sure that you have everything documented is the only way to ensure your independence. It is the only way to ensure that your voice is heard when you don't have a voice. And that's why I am so passionate about this, about the Life Goes On roadmap, and about Nancy, you and Steve, and the work that you're doing in the world. So tell us a little bit more about what guided you and Steve to create this beautiful movement.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's really very personal. I'm a woman in her 50s, and last December, it seemed that 3 people that I loved had black cats cross their path. Mm. One person was served divorce papers by surprise after 35 years of marriage. Another person, 62 years of age, got the flu, a particularly bad case of it, went to the hospital and sadly died. And another person was alerted that her stage 4 lymphoma came back. And I have a really big heart, and I'm walking around kind of dazed, and subsequently got in the car with my husband. We're taking a road trip. And I said to him, it used to be that these kinds of things were happening to other people. Now they're happening to people that we know, and I fear that we could be next. And I said, I really want us to have some different conversations about how we manage our investments, how I can get power, access, and control of everything. Because you know what? If there are 2,428 sudden deaths in America every single day, either one of us could be next. And if it's you, I want to know how to access everything we have so I can drive life forward. And if it's not you that has died in an accident, I want to know how I can advocate and champion you. And that means I need to have power, access, and control over everything we have so that there's no doubt. And so he is a certified financial planner professional. He helps people manage their money to achieve whatever they want to in their lives. But he says to me, like it was I wish I could have had a V8 moment. He says, we help people with their investments. We help people plan for retirement, but it's a blind spot that advisors don't show their clients exactly how to gain power, access, and control over everything they've accumulated over a lifetime. And so I said to him, all I want for Christmas is that roadmap, because that's going to be the greatest gift you could ever give to me and our family. And then once we created it, we said, we need to make sure families everywhere have access to this. because it is the greatest gift you can give to your partner, your domestic partner, the person who you share your house with. I'm not attached to whether it's a husband or a wife specifically. I don't care who it is, but somebody needs to have your back, and that information needs to be written down so someone knows where to go to get it. Because when the rubber meets the road and people are having grief or loss, it's the last thing you want to be worrying about is how to pay for everything or how to turn off the gas and the water in your house if there's a flood. You need to know this stuff. So really the story is very personal, and now I'm waving the flag for a revolution that families everywhere will get on board.
Oh, I love it, Nancy. So you talked about the blind spots. We're going to talk about the blind spots. What are the 5 blind spots that cause couples, anybody, to worry?
Well, one of them is no central place to store the most important information. Chances are that you have a marriage license, you have a social security card, you have a passport, you have your those kinds of things. Do you know where they are, and can you find them in a moment's notice? Those kinds of documents should be stored in a central location where both you and your partner know where they are, because if there's a fire or a flood or the house is burning down, where's my passport? You don't want your passport in your safety deposit box, because if you need to leave the country instantly and it's a Saturday, chances are you're not going to be able to get to the bank and leave town. So what is it that you need to store in a central location in your home, and do both parties know where to find it? That would be one thing. That's the 5th point. The 4th point is missing key information. You know, there was a movie a few years ago called Ghostbusters. Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters, right? If something happens to your pet, your house, your plumbing, your electricity, who are you going to call? Do you even know? You know, I'll never forget the time. This is a true story. I live in Seattle, and it rains a lot here. And one day, we came home from a soccer game with our son, and he used the bathroom, and for some crazy reason, the bathroom toilet decided to overflow, and it was like a river, and it was threatening the entire 1st floor of our house.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm thinking, what do we do? Well, we went and got a hose, and we were trying to siphon the water from the toilet to the outside to sort of sidestep what was happening in the house. But we called a plumber. We knew who to call, and we called him right away, and the guy showed up. We still had a big, huge mess to clean up. But if you don't know who you need to call, that adds drama, trauma, and chaos to the situation. So not only are we talking about service providers here, but here we want to know about passwords and security questions. There are some accounts that you need to gain access to that you cannot gain access to unless you know the passwords and the security questions. If somebody has a pad of paper over here with a whole bunch of chicken scratch where some of it is crossed out and some of it is whited out, and you don't know which is which, you've got yourself a serious puzzle to untangle at the worst possible time. So get your information together. Things like your service providers, your house operations, your insurance, your real estate, your valuables, your vehicles, your retirement and social security accounts. This kind of thing is useful to have. But if you don't know where to find it, you're in trouble.
That's right.
The 3rd biggest blunder or mistake that people make is they don't keep their information current. And so what we know for sure is that most couples have 130 online accounts between them. And that is a lot of passwords and security questions that one person may not know and the other person may not know either. So if it's a situation where you need to know what you can turn off and turn on and you don't have access, that's a problem. So what we like to recommend, just like you change the battery in your smoke detector every 6 months to make sure the house doesn't burn down, take a moment in time and decide what are all your accounts, what are the passwords, what are the security questions, and then every quarter, just like you changed the battery in the smoke detector. Did anything change? Let's go and update it, because if you are hit by a truck tomorrow, if there's some random act where you can no longer speak, if you lose your functionality, if you lose your memory, and you can't recall where any of this is, well, that's going to create an awful lot of aggravation for the people who are responsible for looking after what needs to be looked after, including you.
That's right. That's right. Quick story about that. My dad, the day I became a caregiver for him, was when he was hit by a semi amid a 20-car pileup. And
oh,
yeah, and he, from the trajectory of everything, he should have died, but he didn't. He suffered severe traumatic brain injury and physical injuries, and he, several years prior, had given me this big brown envelope, and said, "This is for you. You're my power of attorney. If the day comes where you need it, open this up." I promptly put it in my important filing, and I was never so more thankful to have that information. And when you talk about keeping it updated, because he had given it to me several years before, and it was on paper, the will, the trust, the power of attorney, the advanced medical directives, all that was obviously okay. But he gave me also a list of all of his passwords, his subscriptions, and so many things. And most of them were outdated. So I found myself trying to chase things down. And so anyway, I that keeping it current is super, super important.
Well, and just think about your own life. I mean, doesn't it happen that every 3 months, some service provider says, update your credit card?
Yes. Yes.
If we don't do this on a regular basis, we create aggravation for ourselves. That's time away from our jobs or our businesses where we can be making money. And we are of sound mind and body. If we are not of sound mind or body, and we have to try to figure this out, well, that's pretty difficult. And, real life is that there's so many people being diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and dementia. The very first time you notice that you can't find your keys or you can't remember where you put something, I think a lot of us start to wonder, like, is this what it could be?
Right.
But if you are a child of someone who's starting to have these kinds of situations, this is where it's important to start having a conversation. And it's like, hey, let's make a game of remembering all the places where we have our important information stored, and let's see how quickly we can zoom through this so that we can feel really great about what we know. Because maybe next week the memory loss will be worse, and there could be things that get misplaced that are never found because there's no record of it. And that brings me to an interesting story. My husband is the youngest of 5 children, and his dad was the youngest of 16. And sadly, he passed away in his late 80s in 2002. Well, we thought we knew everything about him and what he had accumulated, and the estate had been long settled. But just this year, a distant relative found out that Fred Juetten had some property listed on some national directory, and it had been unclaimed. And so Steve and his 2 sisters had to powwow about who was going to lead the cause to see what this asset was and what value it had, and that it could be disseminated between them. And it turned out to be like pennies from heaven, thanks to this wonderful relative who had reached out and said there was this property that nobody knew about. So not all of us know what our parents are up to in terms of what they've invested in, what properties they own.
Yes.
And why not find out? Go on a scavenger hunt and find out what everybody has and where it lives. So if you needed to get your hands on it, you could.
That's right.
Because if you don't know how to find what's missing, that's just a mystery that may never get solved. And it could be a blessing in disguise if you actually knew how to get it. Yeah. Right?
Isn't there something like 7 million people that have secret accounts that their live-in partners don't know about?
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you brought that up, because, for the most part, the people that we are working with here in our company are really great people across America that want to do the right thing by their family.
Mhm.
But we have heard from countless women and even IRS agents that have said there are a lot of people that have their heads in the sand. Husbands are being secretive about their accounts. They're paying secret spouses and they're paying secret child support to children that they didn't even know existed. Some people are finding out that husbands or wives didn't pay their business taxes, and they're finding out by surprise when the IRS agent shows up at their place of business and said, hate to be the one to break it to you, but hubby didn't pay his business taxes for the last 2 years, and this is your liability. I mean, there are situations where there's trouble in paradise, and here's what I want to say about that. You can keep your head in the sand and hope that nothing bad is happening. That's certainly one strategy. But what if you're 75 years old and you all of a sudden discover that tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars has been evaporated from whatever accounts you thought you had, and at 72 maybe you don't have the runway to recover economically? Even if the information that you learn about is bad news, I would rather find out about it as soon as possible so that I could take action to correct whatever misdeeds have happened and declare my independence from whatever difficulties were delivered. You know, we've heard from people who discovered their partner had a gambling habit or a drinking problem, extra children, extra wives, not paying their taxes. Listen, I'm not a marriage counselor. I'm not a relationship coach. I'm none of those things. But if those kinds of things are going on, head out of the sand, into the light, have some bold conversations, and see what you need to do to navigate out of it. Because better to do it now while you still can than to suffer the consequences when there's nothing to be done about it.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. Yes. Okay.
So that kind of relates to the next point, which is what is the other blunder, which it's keeping your partner in the dark or choosing to stay there. And, you know, it's interesting. I heard from a woman, she says, for 32 years, I've paid all the bills. I've managed the household. I've taken care of the kids. My husband shows absolutely no interest or inclination to do any of it. And she says, I'm tired of it. It's a lot of work. I've done it for 32 years. I've done my time. I would like my husband to help lighten my load. And I said, well, why don't you two have a conversation about it and see if you could open his eyes? Because if he were to pass, if she were to pass on, or something were to happen to her where she was no longer able to do that, what would he do? Right. He wouldn't know what to do. My friend Yvonne Heath, who wrote a book called Love Your Life to Death, says, do you know anyone out there where she doesn't know how to find the checkbook and he doesn't know how to make a sandwich? And it's like, we all know somebody who doesn't know anything about anything. And then when they're grieving the loss of that person and they can't find the checkbook and they don't know how to write a check and they don't know how to call their investment advisor, that's not really the kind of wake-up call they need at that particular moment. And so don't stay in the dark. Open up your eyes. Have the courage to start a conversation. Have some lightness of being, hey, I want to do my part. Hey, I want to discover what I can do differently or better to make the household work better. I want to have a voice in the way we, deal with our investments. I mean, many ways to start a conversation, but to not start a conversation is a costly potential consequence when so much is at stake.
Absolutely.
And what's the number one biggest thing that people forget to do? They don't get organized and they pay the consequences at the worst possible time. I'm sure in your caregiving journey, and the work that you do with your community, I mean, have you heard stories from folks that have said, shoot, I wasn't expecting this, and now what?
Yeah.
So what have you?
All the time.
So what would you say to someone who's, tell us more about that.
People that are thrust in the role of caregiving and are now having to manage that on top of everything that we're talking about, you know, makes it extremely overwhelming, paralyzing, really paralyzing, where they simply don't feel like they can breathe another breath or take another step forward because they simply are so overwhelmed and they have things coming at them from so many different directions. And it causes a lot of burden, a lot of miscommunication and misunderstanding among families. And dare I say, it creates a lot of family strife and drama and trauma that really didn't need to be there. And at a time when everybody should be coming together to help their loved one, it's ripping them apart.
Well, that's so heartbreaking. And it's so, listen, we can't do anything about the diagnosis or the death or the disability. We can't change those things sometimes. Right. But are there things that we can do? You know, this is, we're speaking in early October, and it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
That's right.
And someone I know leads an organization that supports women who survive breast cancer. And she was a breast cancer survivor herself. And she told me that when she was diagnosed, it was obviously like an earthquake in their life.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, her day-to-day routine was completely changed because it was guided by chemotherapy, radiation, trying to feel better from the treatment, and all the various appointments that were related to that. She didn't feel like she had any control over her life anymore, but she felt this incredibly powerful drive to want to get her life in order because that was the only thing that she could control.
Right.
So she could spend some time, okay, where are my bank accounts? Where are my investment accounts? Where do I store things so if I'm not able to come home for some reason, people can find what they need? And that gave her a sense of empowerment and control at a time in her life where she didn't feel like she had a lot. And now she has this whole initiative called Financial Empowerment After Diagnosis, where she's going to be guiding people to get this kind of stuff done so that they can have that kind of empowerment. So if somebody's a new caregiver, like if you're a brand new caregiver and you've got this whole runway of what your life is going to be like tending to this person that you love, what would someone with a seasoned caregiving background say to a new caregiver about how they can navigate, and would getting organized even make the list? That's my question to you.
Yeah, it would. It would make the list. Yeah. However, sometimes when you're thrust in the middle of chaos and doctors and hospitals and, you know, all this medical jargon that you just, you know, you're not familiar with, and safety issues and surgeries and all of these things, sometimes those things can take a back seat when, you know,
well, while you're numbing out on the couch after a really long day taking care of somebody, maybe the only thing you can do is watch Big Bang Theory on television and try to catch up your breath, which I think is why I would say, you know, not everybody is caregiving yet. If you're not caregiving yet, what if you do some beautiful self-care and get your life in order now before life hits the fan? Because life will. And if it means taking just one rainy day in your life to fill out some paperwork and to have some conversations, could you do that? Because you'll never regret doing it. But when the rubber meets the road and life has happened, you will wish that you had.
Absolutely.
And, which kind of reminds me of an interesting little anecdote. There's this wonderful woman, her name is Lori Burroughs Grad, and she was married happily to the love of her life for 47 years. Mm-hmm. And they were on a beautiful vacation in Cabo, and he died in her arms quite suddenly. She had no idea that he was sick. He just died. And she's actually written a book, and it's called The Joke's Over, I'm Not Coming Back. And it's a noted and notable book about how she's navigated the grief of losing her partner.
Oh.
I heard her do an interview with Jean Chatzky, who is the NBC Money columnist, and she offered the first chapter of her book. And basically, it was all about the practical, tactical things you need to do. You need to know your passwords. You need to know your security questions. You need to know your household operations. You need to know this, that, or the other. So the person's already died, and she's saying, go get all this information, which is good information to go and get. But I wrote back to her and I said, here's the joke about that, is that you can't ask him for the passwords and the security questions after he's gone.
That's right.
So like,
That's
wake up call. And so we've actually created a lovely friendship now. And she says, you're absolutely right. And, you know, it's so wonderful, this community of caregivers and people that help people through grief and people that have practical, tactical tools such as what we have. We can all, you know, the rising tide lifts all the boats as we help each other navigate the terrain and do those things that we can do to feel like we have some control over the rest of our lives, you know?
Yes, absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about this, but what are some cautionary tales from the road that you can share with us?
Oh, well, so many. One woman, she writes that her husband had a stroke at 48 years old and always insisted on handling everything. So while she was tending to his medical care and his diminished capacity, she was having to unlock or attempt to unlock everything that he had been so secretive about, and it made life really challenging for her. Another woman, she basically said, if we had planned ahead and gotten ahead of this, it would have been so much less of a burden for me to deal with what life had served up. And it was like a cautionary tale. Please get your act together. Another woman was the parent of a young mother with 3 young children. And it was a crazy random thing that her daughter had a stroke and lost her ability to speak. And the daughter had the stroke and did not have the power of attorney, the advance directive, the will, or any of her preferences specified. And she didn't have her beneficiaries designated either. So when her mother was trying to advocate and champion her daughter, everybody was saying, I need to speak to your daughter so that we can get everything squared away. And she said, my daughter has lost her ability to speak as a result of her stroke. I don't have a way for her to give you a verbal okay. It was like screaming into the telephone to be heard at the worst possible time.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I was watching a movie, and maybe you've seen this movie. Have you seen this movie, The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel?
No, I have not seen
Oh my gosh, this is such a fantastic movie. It's about a group of 50 and older people that go to this fantastic exotic hotel to enjoy their retirement or to have some new adventures. But one of the people, who was Judi Dench, there's a scene in the movie where she's calling her Wi-Fi company and says, I need to talk to the Wi-Fi. I need to get the Wi-Fi turned on or turned off or whatever it is. And the person says to her, well, I'm going to need to speak to the man of the house. And she says, well, that's not possible. And they said, well, why is that? He had a heart attack and died, and I'm the only one left. And they said, oh, And which brings me to a practical, tactical thing. If you are sharing your home with a spouse, a loved one, a partner, a family member, make sure that both folks' names are on the utility bills so that either one of you can call and say, let's turn it off, let's turn it on, let's adjust our account. Because I actually have a cautionary tale from the road, which was I got one of those scam phone calls that you were talking about on one of your videos, where someone was saying, Mrs. Juetten, this is a courtesy call to let you know that the power to your electricity will be turned off in 45 minutes because of 6 months of unpaid bills. Well, I knew this couldn't be true. And it wasn't true because it was a scam. But when I got on the phone with the utility company, I said, hi, my name is, this is our account number. I would like to make sure that our account is in good standing. And the person says to me, I'm sorry, Mrs. Juetten, I'm not able to speak to you. Your name is not on the account. I was mortified, aggravated. It was like, what? So that night, oh my gosh, do you know what we were doing? We were calling all the utility companies to make sure that my name was on all the accounts, because if it isn't, they will not talk to you. And
Right.
at the worst possible time, when you need somebody to give you their attention and you can't get it,
Right.
that's really aggravating.
Yeah.
And it's, most importantly, it's disempowering. And what we're on a mission to do is to make sure people are empowered to drive life forward no matter what. Do you want that? Do you need that? And is it important enough to designate one day in your life to actually get it done? That's a big question.
It is. It is. Now, you started to share a tip that people can use to get a jump start. What are some other things that our listeners can do to get a jump start on getting their personal finances organized?
Well, simple things like there's a service called Track My Subs. Track My Subs. And it is an online service that you can avail yourself to so that you can actually track all your paid subscriptions online. And you'll get instant reminders to let you know when they're going to update and whether or not you wish to renew them. Has it ever happened to you that you think to yourself, oh shoot, I meant to cancel that and I didn't. And because I didn't, I have to pay a whole other year because I didn't honor the deadline. Has that ever happened?
Absolutely. It's happened to me. Yes.
And that can be costly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes.
So if you go to Track My Subs online, you can actually, that's a practical, tactical thing you can do today to make sure that your digital footprint and all of your paid subscriptions are in one place so that you are empowered to decide, do I want to renew that or not? That's a good activity.
It is. And I want to share with our audience that because you're from a webinar you did, you mentioned Track My Subs. I'd never heard of it. They offer up to 10 accounts free. And then after that, they have a subscription service. I just wanted to point that out, that is a free service up to 10.
And most of us have 130. Right. And whatever it is that they charge for that service.
Yeah.
I mean, this actually really happened to me. There's one of these file sharing companies that you've probably heard about.
Yeah.
And I made a poor choice one day, and there was like a $900 charge on my credit card for this subscription service that I did not want. $900. That's a lot of money for most people. And I got on the phone and I said, I made a mistake with my keyboard. I did not intend to do this. I'm asking you respectfully if you will please reverse the charge. It took me 3 different phone calls to get up the food chain so that they would finally honor that. And I was so aggravated by it that even to this day, I'm not using the name of this file sharing service on this call. But I thought, why did it have to be so hard? But with Track My Subs, whatever you pay to have it, it's worth it, because at least you get to mindfully choose. Do we want to continue to be subscribing to this or that? And if you save 2 or 3 subscriptions that you no longer find useful, you've just saved a meaningful amount of money that you can apply to some other purpose. And isn't that practical and useful for most people?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I want you to, both partners, to be on those utility bills and other essential services. I think Track My Subs is a great idea. Make a point to walk around your house and find out how to turn off the water, the gas, and the power. Because if there's a flood and you don't know how to do it, I'll never forget, this is a funny story. I worked for a really well-to-do person a number of years ago, and his wife never had a job ever. She was a very regal person that just came from great wealth. And she didn't have a lot of practical skills. And one day she called the office, and I happened to answer the phone, and she said, I need to speak to my husband right away. Well, he's in a meeting. Is there something I can do to help you in the meantime? She says, well, the bathroom sink is leaking. And I said, can you tell me more? And she said, when I open the cabinet down below, there's water dripping everywhere. I don't know what to do. This is a really extreme situation. And I said to her, okay, in your kitchen, is there a pot that's big enough to boil spaghetti? She said, I think so. And I said, what I'd like you to do is go get this pot, and I'd like you to bring it into the bathroom and put it underneath the faucet so that it can collect the water for the short term. And the second thing I want you to do is to call a plumber. She says, oh, my husband handles all that. I said, okay, I'll tell him to call you as soon as possible. But if you go to call 411, this was a number of years ago, ask for a plumber in your city and ask them to come out. Because if you've got a flood, at the very least, turn off the water. But I was having to explain this to her in no uncertain terms. And I thought to myself, this is a disempowered woman about practical matters. Please don't let that be you. Where's the fire? Where's the water? Where's the gas? And where's the power shutoff valve? Not only in the home that you live in, but if you're fortunate enough to have a vacation home or a cottage or additional properties that you're responsible for, know it for those things too. Yes. Because if you're not there and something happens, you want to be able to tell somebody, go to the left-hand side of the house where the chimney is and turn off the power. Do it right now. If you don't know, the damage will mount and that will be costly. And so that's pretty practical, tactical stuff.
Love it. Yes. Love it.
Yeah. I think something else that I think that's really important to consider is if you bring up this conversation with your loved ones and they're not willing to talk about it, get curious about why that is and pursue it, because it is in your best interest that everyone be on the same page. Don't let fear stop you from the empowerment that you are worthy of, that you deserve, and that will make a huge difference when life hits the road, a bump in the road, because it isn't a matter of when. It seems like it's going to happen. We just don't know when. And I kind of remember when I was when I was getting married, 31 years ago, a young woman looking into the eyes of my beloved, and we're young and we're beautiful and we're thinking everything's great. And you don't even imagine when you marry somebody that people are going to die and that people will have illnesses and that pets are going to come and go and that floods are going to come and go and economic recessions are going to come and go. All you're thinking about is kittens and unicorns and joy and whatever you're thinking about when you're young and beautiful. And then life goes on for a while, and sometimes life isn't always perfect.
Right.
So let's take imperfect action to get ahead of things before they happen so that you can feel empowered.
I love it. And as empowered family caregivers, that is the message today, is be empowered. Empower yourself, empower your family. Take proactive, imperfect action and get all these things taken care of. So, Nancy, what are you and Steve doing right now? What do you have coming up that our listeners can take action on?
Well, thank you for asking and offering that opportunity. We've obviously created an entire system done for you to help you and your loved ones get on the same page to get organized in all these important ways. And we've created this beautiful binder called the Life Goes On Roadmap, the Prime Timer's Crucial Personal Financial Information System, so life can go on no matter what. And we've made it into a game. We've transformed the task of getting this done into a game you can play that you can win. And included in the system is a game board, a digital organizer that helps you organize all of your important information in a neat and tidy way that's easy to share and save and store with the right people. And it also includes a beautiful guidebook that shows you every step of the journey to take and why you should take it. Now, the world is filled with books and shelf help that never get used. And what's different and special about what we have created for you is that we actually hold your feet to the fire to get this done, because we lead something called the Life Goes On Roadmap Virtual Road Trip. And we have one coming up this month. And when you join with us, wherever you live in the world, anywhere, from your computer, we're going to guide you to get this done as we make it fun So by the end of that day, and I'm anticipating rain that day, so it's a perfect rainy day activity, you're going to get this done. We're going to make it fun. And you're going to become an I'm ready for anything road tripper who's ready for anything, no matter what life dishes up next. And so we're going to help you do the heavy lifting so this gets done. And it would be our pleasure to have you along. And if you're not able to join us live for the 3 check-in calls, you can simply choose your own date with Destiny. All the tools will arrive at your doorstep or your inbox, whatever you choose. And then just choose a date on your calendar where it does work for you and your family to do this. Because if you all do it together, from wherever you live, wherever you are in the country, that's going to give you all a whole lot to talk about. The thing about this journey that's so surprising for so many people is the powerful conversations it ignites between partners and families. Maybe my insurance is not up to date. Maybe I need more insurance and I need to talk to my insurance professional about that. Maybe I don't want to work as long as I have been and I want to accelerate my path to retirement. What do I need to do to make that happen? Maybe there's some journey that I want to take that we haven't yet made a priority. And given the circumstances we have in our family, maybe now is the time. Maybe the conversation is around shifting roles and responsibilities and sharing the load and carrying the load. I don't really know what conversations will emerge in your family, but I know that by starting the conversation with this practical, tactical system, the heart conversations are going to open up too. And this just might be a ninja strategy to get people talking about things like the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about that needs to be addressed, because life is short and precious. We need to make the most of whatever time we have. And the last thing we want to be worrying about is where to find what we need when we need it, when it's the moments matter the most.
That's right. That's
so
right.
That's what we're offering. And I'd love for folks to take a look at it and decide to come along.
Absolutely. And the link for that is bit.ly/easy roadmap, all lowercase. So that's bit.ly/easy, EASY ROADMAP, easy roadmap. And we'll have a link to that in the show notes and the blog and the video as well.
And I should probably mention that you're probably wondering, how much does it cost? Can I afford it? Do I need to take out a mortgage payment to do this?
Right.
No, you do not. The digital system is $97. $97. You and your partner, you and your family, I don't care how you do it, but $97 is it's not a lot of money when you consider how many hours of drama, trauma, and chaos you're going to save looking for things you can't find because this wasn't available to you. Yes. This is the greatest gift you can give to yourself, your family, your loved ones, and I hope that you do, because nothing makes me prouder than when we do our celebration calls on road trip day and people say, thank you for holding our feet to the fire to get this done. We feel so accomplished. We are talking about things we've been delaying for years. We're making new plans. We would never have done this had you not provided this opportunity. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We want millions of people to do this. Why don't you join them? Get a head start and be proud of what you have accomplished with your family.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, when I was in the role of caregiver, I would have paid 20 times that to have had the peace. And a lot of people, if you're listening to this and saying, wow, $97, that's a lot of money when you're on a fixed income or budget or that kind of thing. And I get it. I really do. And know that if you don't do these things, that you're going to end up paying a lawyer or filing, fees with courts in order to make some of these things happen.
Even the time away from your job. If you are paid a wage and you have to use vacation time to handle this kind of stuff, that's an expense. If you have an entrepreneurial venture and you're not able to work in your business because you're taking care of this kind of thing, that's an expense. And then you think about the emotional expense of dealing with this aggravation when you least feel that you have the capacity to endure it.
That's right.
This is your time, your life really does matter. And we're going to guide you through this on One Date with Your Destiny, and you're going to get it done. And it's our dream is that millions of people will be doing this with us at some point and thanking us, and that our legacy will be alive today because we created this tool that is suitable for today's digital age, created by a certified financial planner professional who knows the ropes, and made simple for people, even for folks that don't like technology, because if you can dial a phone, you can call in to our 3 check-in calls on event day. If you're worried about a spreadsheet, don't worry about it. We have a simple, elegant document that even my mother can understand, and she's 88. Yeah. So this is a very important tool. We're very proud of it. We're advancing a revolution for a very specific kind of financial empowerment, and we'd love for you to come along.
Love it. Love it, love it, Nancy. I love what you're doing. So before we get to the Take 5 with Tandy round, is there anything that I didn't ask or anything that you haven't shared that you'd like to share now before we move into the final round?
No, I feel pretty good.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's take 5. So first question, what is your best advice to reduce caregiver stress?
My best advice to reduce caregiver stress is to go to bit.ly.com/easy roadmap and invest $97 to get this delivered to your door so that you can have that peace of mind long before it becomes a crisis situation.
Excellent. What is your best piece of advice for new caregivers?
For new caregivers, I highly encourage you to avail yourself to Tandy's book. It's called Healing Through Chaos. Learn how to heal through chaos. This is what you need to know right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. How have you found your best during what seems like your worst?
I found my best in my worst in a funny way. There's a movie called The Martian where a guy gets stuck on Mars and he's there for 4 years and he doesn't even know if he should have hope or the belief that he'll ever get back to Earth. And the way that he manages his 4 years on Mars is just by handling the problem in front of him, one problem at a time. And I find that when I'm at my worst, we Watney the problem, because his name was Watney. My husband says, we got to Watney that. Handle the most urgent problem one at a time and just keep moving forward with your eye on the prize. Step by step, you can accomplish anything.
I love it. Love it. Build that resiliency. Be like the weed that never dies.
Or the blackberry bush that never dies.
Oh,
They're so noxious weeds. Yeah.
Gosh. What are you grateful for right now, Nancy?
I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for the opportunity I have to wave this flag for this revolution I'm fighting for. And I'm especially glad that my husband and I have found a way to blend his very specific expertise and mine in a way that can be truly our finest hour on the planet as we move into this next phase of our lives.
That's beautiful, Nancy. And what would you tell someone to keep hope alive?
You got to believe. That's when in doubt, somehow you just got to believe that something good is going to come from whatever has happened.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You just got to believe, because what is your alternative? Yeah. I mean, you just got to believe. And 3 people's paths crossed mine: divorce, disability, and the death. And I was hopeless and sad for these 3 people. And I thought, what role can I play to make things better for other people who have that same situation, including myself?
Yeah. You're
never too old and it's never too late to create something amazing that will change lives and make your legacy alive right now. Absolutely. So keep that in mind. Believe. Yes. You got to believe.
Absolutely. Everybody dies, but not everybody lives. And in my opinion, doing something like this, getting their roadmap, completing the roadmap, is the first step to peaceful living, so that you can live with peace and ease. So yeah, I encourage everyone to head over to bit.ly/easy roadmap and grab yours.
And tell your friends if you've enjoyed this video. And that's been sort of an interesting thing. We've got some fun Facebook things happening, but the amount of organic sharing that's happening when videos like this get shared from friend to friend, from family to family, we can truly change lives in a very powerful way. And if you've gotten value from the free suggestions that we've shared today, do you know 10 people that you can share it with today so that they can benefit too? Maybe this will be that ninja strategy that you need to share with folks to start conversations that have been needing to happen for a really long time.
Yes.
So think about that.
Yes. Be empowered. Empower yourselves. Absolutely. Nancy, it has been such an honor to have you with us today. I thank you so very much for sharing your time, your wisdom, just your energy with us, and for you. And thank you to you and Steve for co-creating this magnificent product and service for everyone.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for your championship. You know, there are entrepreneurs everywhere that have big ideas that can change lives. And when you get to talk with people like you, you know, you get to double or triple your audience and touch that many more lives. And we're really all about creating that kind of empowerment. And so this is a beautiful gift you can give yourself and your family. It's not just shelf help. We're going to help you do the heavy lifting. So go to bit.ly/easy roadmap, all one word, and just go get it. That's Absolutely. It. And get it and do it, because we're coming for you. We're coming for you.
That's right. That's right. Oh my gosh. And I encourage you to head over to our Facebook page at Empowered Family Caregiver, where we continue the conversation. And until next time, stay empowered and calm.